Okay, howdy out there. This is Beck Barnes and Jim Steadman of Cotton Grower Magazine fame, and we are coming at you with the world-renowned Cotton Companion podcast here near the end of July. The tail end of July here. So whether you are joining us from Greenville, Mississippi, or from Greenville, South Carolina, or any of the various and sundry Greenvilles in this great nation, we welcome you. I'm joined as always by my partner in crime, Cotton Grower's senior editor, Mr. Jim Steadman. Howdy, Jim.
Good afternoon or good day, Beck, and good hello to everybody out there.
We're at noontime, which is why you heard some hesitation from Jim getting to good afternoon or good morning. It is also why you may hear my stomach growl as we progress through this podcast, so y'all bear with me. I have not had maybe a little cranky too. I get a little hangry before I get my lunch. So
if you get out of hand, I'll reach across and slap you. Okay?
There we go. So we are back in the studio today at the end of what has been an unseasonably pleasant week here in the Mid-South. It's been dry and in the 80s throughout the day out there. I have honestly not known how to react besides to get out there and just enjoy it when I could. I feel like you guys out there in the field or maybe here in the Mid-South would rather have some heat units. To be honest, I'm not my knowledge of heat units is not terribly scientifically sound, but I know that generally y'all like it to be hot, but I'm sure y'all don't mind some pleasant weather either. I have recently this week been up at the InfoAg conference. I was up in St. Louis, and that is a conference for all of the super techie gadgets and ag software. You know, it's all of the latest cutting edge stuff in precision ag and ag tech. And for a farm nerd like myself, man, I bring my pocket protector up there and just geek out with all that stuff. It's such a neat thing to see. I'm like a kid in a candy store. So anyhow, it's been a busy week for us. It's been a busy week in cotton news. We are going to get into that momentarily. But first things first, we want to hear a quick word from our gracious sponsor, Phytogen.
Phytogen is pleased to sponsor the Cotton Companion, bringing you the latest news to help you thrive all season long.
So all right, that is a timely Phytogen ad because at this moment we are going to bring you a brief custom content segment featuring our own custom content editor, that's Robin Sichtberg, and she recently sat down and spoke with Dr. Tom Eubank. He is a Phytogen cotton development specialist for the state of Mississippi, and we want to bring you that custom interview right now.
Hello, I'm Robin Sichtberg, custom content editor with Meister Media Worldwide, publisher of Cotton Grower Magazine. My guest today is Dr. Tom Eubank, Phytogen cotton development specialist for Mississippi. Welcome back to the program, Tom.
Thank you, Robin. Glad to be here.
Well, I know in our last interview, we talked about some of the earlier season challenges that were facing growers and how to overcome them. What are some of the challenges you're seeing as far as disease and insect pressure this season?
Yeah, so we are beginning to see in some of the competitor varieties some bacterial blight issues beginning to show up. That's a more recent pest that has kind of come back into the spotlight again. But one advantage that Phytogen cotton has with our native breeding traits that all of our wide stripe 3 flex enlist varieties have inherent resistance to bacterial blight. So that gives growers an additional peace of mind there that they can focus their energy and concerns elsewhere. Bacterial blight is not going to be an issue with wide stripe 3 flex enlist cotton.
That's great. Great news for growers everywhere, I think. And then there's that other pest that growers continually have a problem with every year, bollworms. What do you recommend that growers do to protect their crops from bollworms?
Yeah, the cotton bollworm is definitely a pest that cotton growers have to contend with on an annual basis. One of the big concerns that we have is where this pest establishes itself in a corn crop and it moves out of the corn into cotton. And unfortunately, they're exposed to the BT technology in corn and can often that next generation then be somewhat resistant to BT cotton in certain situations. What we have observed, though, is with the wide stripe 3 flex enlist cotton variety that we offer in Phytogen cottonseed, is it brings another level of protection for cotton growers against that pest. And in some situations, we've seen growers have to apply 2 or 3 applications of an insecticide to try to control cotton bollworm in 2BT cotton, whereas with White Stripe 3, they've been able to control that pest without having to make additional applications or oversprays.
What else can growers do to protect against bollworms, such as scouting or other cultural practices?
Well, the big thing is to make sure that they're monitoring it aggressively and scouting the crop. As I mentioned, corn bollworm can move from corn into cotton, but also in soybeans, where soybeans are grown, that pest can infect soybeans as well. But scouting intensively, making sure that we manage these pests. Most of the consultants and entomologists know that with the 3BT technology, like we see with White Stripe 3, entomologists recommend a treatment only when worms are visible. With 2BT cotton varieties, they recommend an egg spray. So we have another level of protection there with the White Stripe 3 technology that the other competitor varieties don't offer.
Okay, good. Where can growers find out more information about the White Stripe 3 or Phytogen W3FE varieties?
Sure, they can go to phytogen.com for more information, or they could reach out to their local Phytogen territory manager or cotton development specialist, and we'd be happy to assist.
All right, well, that's our time, but thank you so much, Tom, for being on the program again.
Thank you, Robin.
All right, a big thank you to Robin and to Dr. Tom Eubank for that. We want to get the ball rolling here, though, on our 52nd episode. We got a good one for you today. It's maybe a shorter news segment, but certainly denser news segment because there's a lot to unpack. You would agree with that?
I would definitely agree with that.
What's gone on is just this week we had some details starting to emerge about that 2019 Market Facilitation Payment program, which I know has been a topic of high interest naturally among our listeners. So Jim is going to dive into that. He's going to cover what we can gather from the details that have started to emerge. It sounds like it's good news for most of us in our listening audience. So you won't want to miss that. We've also got a brief crop progress update. And so it'll be a good news segment. After that, though, we're going to bring you a conversation that Jim had recently with Mr. Frederick Barrier, who is a VP at StaplCotn. And they were talking, cotton consumption, the impact of the lingering trade war, America's competitors, and just lots of juicy U.S. cotton stuff that y'all won't want to miss. So, as you can tell, a great episode today. Without further ado, I'm going to get out of my man Jim's way, and he is going to lead us in a focused discussion of the news items of the day. Jim, go for it.
Thank you, Beck. We're going to start just with the crop progress notes from the most recent USDA crop progress report, and that would be for the week ending July 1st. I believe, as I recall, in our last episode, we were a bit concerned. We didn't do any crop progress news because we were a bit concerned about the impact that hurricane or tropical storm or tropical depression Barry may have on crops in the Mid-South.
That was the case?
It was. Well, it appears when you look at the crop report, most recent report, any concerns about a negative impact were pretty much like the storm. They were pretty much overblown. In fact, if you look at it closely, the rains from the storm in general may have helped get this year's crop pretty much back on schedule. So according to the report, squaring now present in 78% of the U.S. crop, and that's just 2 percentage points behind the 5-year average for the date. So that's a pretty quick catch-up there. That's an 18% increase in the past week and a 31% jump in the past 2 weeks in terms of squaring. In all 8 states, Alabama, Arizona, Georgia, Kansas, North Carolina, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Virginia are on or ahead of average for this date. Boll set is now reported in 33% of the crop, and that's 13% jump in the past week and only 4 percentage points behind the 5-year average. 6 states, again, Arizona, Georgia, Kansas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, are currently running ahead of average. So those crops are doing very, very well in those states. Crop condition, to me, the most important part of all this is improving week over week in July as we get into some of these warmer temperatures and get the cotton up and really moving. The U.S. crop as of July 21st was rated 60% good to excellent, 30% fair, and only 10% fell into that poor or very poor category. That's down from 19% poor, very poor 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I've got a buddy actually in North Mississippi who's been urging me to look into doing a story on how similar this season is to, apparently 1991 was such a very similar situation where it was such a difficult planting window and a lot of guys struggled to even get anything in the ground, had to replant multiple times, and then the rest of the year, once you got past planting season, was so picture perfect in terms of what you would want in terms of weather that they wound up having just a wonderful crop, wonderful yields that year. And I know we certainly saw that similar struggle in planting season, particularly here in the Mid-South and there in the Southeast where there was a lot of drought conditions. And so hopefully, yeah, we are on our way to just blowing it out at the gin here with our yields towards the end of this year.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, even though we are really enjoying some very nice temperatures this week. Yeah, I think most growers would like those temps to be about 5 to 10 degrees higher.
Yeah.
To get a few more, keep the heat units moving on that cotton and keep it progressing.
Yeah, well, to be sure, they're on their way today.
Oh yeah, they'll be back.
Today's a little warmer, but I suspect in a couple of days.
Yeah, I think they'll enjoy next week and the weeks beyond.
Yeah,
again.
we'll be right back there.
Yeah, definitely. The big news came July 25th when USDA made their announcement about the details for the Market Facilitation Support Program.
That's yesterday.
That's as of yesterday.
Yeah.
Upland and extra long staple cotton are on the list of U.S. farm products eligible for payments. Now, this is part of a $16 billion package through the Market Facilitation Program, Food Purchase and Distribution Program, and Agricultural Trade Promotion Program. This program is designed to support, obviously, U.S. growers and farmers and ranchers impacted by the retaliatory tariffs on U.S. ag goods and other trade disruptions. Obviously, the announcement quickly drew praise from the National Cotton Council, other U.S. cotton organizations, and a host of other commodity groups throughout the U.S. Now, I'm going to go through some of the details on this, and it's going to be a very general, 5,000-foot look at the program because there are a lot of details that need to be worked out with each grower, with the Farm Service Agency in their area. So, based on this, sign up for the program. By the time you hear this podcast, sign up will have already begun. It begins Monday, July 29th, and it will end on Friday, December 6th. The first round of payments is expected to be made in mid to late August for those of you who rush out there and get signed up, followed by second and third rounds of payments are likely in November and January, and that's going to be based, though, on continued evaluation of the market conditions and trade opportunities. So in essence, should we get a resolution to the trade situation, particularly with China, then there's a good chance that part of this program payments won't be necessary. In addition to cotton, there are 27 other, as they call them, non-specialty crops covered under the program. Those are things such as alfalfa hay, barley, canola, corn, long and medium grain rice, oats, peanuts, sorghum, soybeans, wheat, and a whole list of other specialty legume crops. And there's also, also assistance for non-specialty, or this assistance for non-specialty crops, is based on a single county payment rate, which is multiplied by a farm's total plantings of eligible crops in aggregate in 2019. Now, I hope you understand what that means much better than I do. But essentially, these per acre payments are not dependent on which of these crops were planted in 2019. A producer's total payment eligible plantings, although cannot exceed total 2018 plantings. And any acreage of non-specialty crops and cover crops have to be in the ground by August 1st in order to be eligible for these the market facilitation payments. When you look at the other parts of the program, in particular the Agricultural Trade Promotion Program, will continue to provide cost share assistance to eligible U.S. organizations for activities to help U.S. farmers and ranchers identify and access some new export markets, and that's especially important for U.S. cotton, as that program provides a great deal of funding to Cotton Council International to promote and build demand for U.S. cotton around the world. As far as other agricultural products are concerned, market facilitation payments will also be made to producers of nut crops, including pecans, and some fruit crops like fresh grapes and fresh sweet cherries based on the 2019 acres of fruit or nut-bearing plants. Those are some of the other specialty crops that have been particularly impacted by the tariff situation. And dairy producers who are in business as of June 1st will receive a per hundredweight payment on production history, and hog producers are going to get a payment based on the number of live hogs owned on a day that is selected by the producer that falls somewhere between April 1st and May 15th of this year. So that, in a nutshell, that's really the areas where the payments are going to be. And as Beck mentioned, when you start looking at the payment rates, those of us in the Cotton Belt may put a little bit of a smile on our face at this point. County payment rates for this program range from $15 to $150 per acre, depending on the impact of the trade retaliation impact on a particular county. Now, a quick glance at those rates show that obviously southern states are going to fare better than those in the Midwest, primarily due to the diversity of crops grown, including certainly cotton. For example, when you look at the rates, counties in Midwestern states at best will find payments falling somewhere in the $50 to $70 per acre range. When you move down into the Cotton Belt states, you'll find those county payments generally falling in the $110 to $150 range. So again, if you're interested, certainly you've got to go to your local farm service agency to sign up for this, and they may have more details there. If you want a quick look at the county payment rates, those are available online at farmers, that's farmers.gov, or you can see our article on the market facilitation program that's currently on cottongrower.com, and there's a link to those listed rates in that article. And one other thing to consider or keep in mind, there are limits to how much an individual grower or rancher can receive in payments. So check with your farm service agency office for those details.
Yeah, that's Jim. I commend you. That's a tough topic to wade into, to make sure you feel like you're hitting all of the little dynamic offshoots of that story. There's a lot there, and you've done a good job with it. I think, the major takeaway, as you hit on at the end there, it sounds like the Cotton Belt states are getting one of the better ends of this thing, and that's good. That's evidence of a job well done by the folks at the council. Just this morning, they came out with a statement. I saw that they were pleased with how this shook out, and so it sounds like it's a good deal. We know that there's no substitute for a healthy market, and we want this trade dispute to come to an end ASAP. But it's a great deal that the USDA has taking care of y'all out there. It's a tough job, man. I try to explain to people who aren't in agriculture, the gamble that you take in trying to produce a crop and make a profit on a crop every year, and you have to have assurances from your government that you're going to be able to do that, and this is one of those cases where we wouldn't be able to do it without this help.
Absolutely. And just one other quick item. I wanted to do a quick shout out to the 19 cotton growers who are participating in the Producer Information Exchange, or the PI tours, this week, or the week of starting July 29. 10 growers from the Southwest will be enjoying their time in the San Joaquin Valley of California, and 9 growers out of the Southeast are touring the Upper Mid-South as part of the tours, and we're sure it's going to be a good week for everyone involved.
Yeah, those things are great. I've had a lot of fun being one of the boys on the bus in those things, so I know those folks are enjoying themselves and getting a lot out of it. So is that all we got, Jim?
That's what we have.
Okay, good deal. We are we want to hold up with the news there then and bring y'all this interview that Jim conducted with Mr. Frederick Barrier, who he was kind enough to talk to Jim while Jim was up at the Southern Cotton Ginners Association summer meeting. Y'all were in Missouri, is that right?
We were in Branson, Missouri.
Beautiful Branson, Missouri. And so it sounds like y'all touched on a lot of things, right? I mean, can you give me a brief summary?
Well, it's not specifically an interview, a face-to-face interview.
Oh, that's right. I forget.
Mr. Barrier was there doing a cotton market outlook presentation at the Southern Cotton Ginners program, and he graciously, I talked with him after his presentation, and he graciously agreed to let us use excerpts from this presentation. What we're going to do is we have one excerpt today that focuses on cotton consumption, the impacts of the continuing trade war, and new competitors and opportunities for the U.S. In our next episode, which will be episode number 53 here in a few weeks, you're going to hear more from him on some of the more specifics on what the trade war, trade disputes, and things like that are currently, the impact it's currently having, but yet some opportunities as we start moving ahead.
Okay, all right, good deal then. It sounds like y'all touched on a good bit, stuff that our audience would be interested in. So without further ado, we are going to bring y'all that interview right now.
Any uncertainty is a drain on consumption. I mean, we've got just a very complex flow of trade lanes all around the world. People trade with this country here and there. Any kind of uncertainty just paralyzes people. You have supply chain disruption. So all of a sudden, if you were buying Chinese yarn, now you got to buy yarn from Vietnam. If you were buying fabric from China, now you got to buy it from let's say Bangladesh. It just creates all kind of confusion. Everyone has to react to it. They have to go to other markets. Then you have substitution of other growths in our markets. So you take John and John back there, people like us that work hard to develop relationships all around the world, and all of a sudden we build these relationships now. We can't sell U.S. cotton to these markets because we're not competitive. So we've got to go out and develop markets elsewhere. So that's part of what we're doing. We've been out developing new markets. I will tell you this, the textile margins are under huge pressure. I just talked to Hank, he's overseas in Korea. He said, Frederick, these guys are losing money, been losing money for a year. Margins are terrible. But I'll tell you another thing. Usually when the market goes down like it does, it stimulates consumption. This drop in futures hasn't done anything to warrant anybody buying any more cotton. That's what's sad, but that's what's happened. It's dropped too fast, too quick. This trade deal's got everybody off the sidelines, so we're in a free fall with prices, and it's not stimulating demand. Now, we don't have much old crop cotton left to sell, but if you look ahead at new crop sales aren't that high, at least not for the U.S. And then you have the U.S. dollar, which over the last year and a half has been pretty strong against some of our importing countries. We'll spend a little more time talking about Brazil, but my recent trip to China, sitting down in the middle office, they're enjoying this crop from Brazil. Brazil had a monster crop this year, and the quality was excellent. Hate to hear that, okay? Hate to hear that, but you got to tip your hat. They're doing a good job down there, and they're reacting to the increase in demand. And then finally, we've oil prices, synthetic prices are pretty cheap. Global synthetic prices are anywhere from 66 to 69 cents a pound. So those are some challenges that we have. So we talk about a deal or no deal. I'm not going to put 27 suitcases up here and force you all to pick which one you want. Okay, I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to say, what is the significance of no deal? What does it mean to us? So let's just take the U.S., okay? Let's just do some simple math and say, if the U.S. produces 22 million bales this year, and we export 2 million bales left, 15 million bales, we get any stocks of 8.4 million bales. That's horrible. Our warehouses would be good for the warehouse business, but it'd be terrible for cotton prices. And that's just assuming China doesn't import any more cotton. And their balance sheet will stay the same. But you put it on a graph, and it's pretty revealing, guys. I mean, you know, we can ill afford, really, I don't want to see us go to 6.5 million bales, but I sure don't want to see us go to 8.4. That would move the needle in the wrong direction. So, obviously, I think, you know, I do think we're going to do better than 15 million bales, but it's certainly a concern. So, as we move forward, you know, I would ask you what is in jeopardy? Certainly our export market share is in jeopardy. U.S. exports, there's a big question. What are we going to do with it? I think this slide right here will sum it up pretty well. You can look at Chinese import market share for the last 3 years, okay? The United States in 2006 was 46% of the cotton China imported. 2017, we were 45%. Last year, we dropped to 13%. At the same time, look at Brazil. Brazil was only 4%, increased their market share to 7%. It's up as high as 25% in 18. Australia was 18%, 23%, and 29%. India is somewhere going to average somewhere around 15%. So if China's going to import more cotton, where are they going to get it from? We're growing the surplus cotton. It would make sense to come here, but we got this trade deal hanging over our heads. So if not China, where does it go? So what I did here was I took, over the last 10 years, I took the best year for each country mentioned on this board. So if we maxed out our export sales to these given countries on our best year, without China, the most we can get is 15.89 million bales. Now, obviously, we've already got some cotton sold to China, some cotton in the free trade zone that's not under the risk of getting a tariff, but it just shows you how important that relationship is with China and how much work we have to cut out for us if we don't have China in the mix. Growing markets for your cotton, the cotton that you guys are ginning. You're seeing increases in Vietnam, Indonesia, and Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. You know, some of these markets are easier to operate with than others, but today we enjoy a 40% of import share of Vietnam, 47% in Indonesia, 47% in Pakistan, 40% of what little cotton is imported in India, and 10% in Bangladesh. We're seeing some growth there. We're seeing growth in Bangladesh. They've got a growing textile market there, but it's a challenge to operate in. LCs don't open there very quickly. Sometimes it takes a little kicking and screaming and clawing to get your LCs open. So, you know, again, when you take some lanes that you've got some synergies and some efficiencies working in and replace them with some new ones, there's some headaches that pop up from time to time. So let's talk about the biggest competition we have for U.S. cotton today, and that is in Brazil. Okay? Look back at cotton production from Brazil in 14, 15, and 16. They were producing anywhere from 6 to 7 million bales. Had a slight tick up in 17. Last year they produced almost 13 million bales. Averaged almost 1,500 pounds an acre. That's hard to compete with. This year they're forecasted to produce 12 million bales. Look at Brazil's exports. They are, as George mentioned, that's who we're competing with. Brazil consumes about 3.6, 3.7 million bales a year, so most of their cotton is going to go export. We can see here that export share, total was as low as 2.79 million bales. This year is forecast to be 8.2. Look at what Brazil's done to China. Who's taking our place? Who's going to ship that cotton, as George said? Well, they went from less than 400,000 bales in 17. Year to date, they're almost at 1.8, 1.9 million bales. So Brazil is a formidable foe. It's something we've got to look at. I would urge you guys to look at what they're doing down there. Now look, they had a great harvest season last year. That doesn't mean this is going to happen again this year. But certainly they bear watching.
All right, well, we want to give a big thank you then to Frederick Barrier and StaplCotn for being so sharp and on top of all of the developments around U.S. cotton. We thank them. All right, well, that's going to just about do it for this installment of the Cotton Companion podcast. We want to thank Phytogen, as always, for sponsoring us, and we want to thank you, dear listener, sincerely for joining us. If you like what you're hearing, tell your farmer buddies about us. We bet they'll like it too. They can get to our podcast in 3 easy ways. The first, simply go to cottongrower.com and add a /companion there such that it reads cottongrower.com/companion. Second, subscribe to our channel on iTunes or wherever it is that you find your podcast these days. The third and best way to make sure you're getting each episode of the Cotton Companion is to sign up for our weekly e-newsletter, the Cotton Grower e-news. You can do that by going to www.cottongrower.com/companion, /subscribe. Also, once you do that, you will be getting the Cotton Grower e-news. It hits your email inbox like clockwork every Tuesday morning. You won't want to miss it. Also, make sure you're following us on social media. We are at Cotton Grower Mag on Twitter, and on Facebook you can find us by simply searching for Cotton Grower Magazine. We hope that you're enjoying our latest issue. That would be the May-June issue. The next one to hit your mailbox will be the second week of September when we come to you with the August-September issue. This podcast is produced by Mr. Tyler Hatch, who works at the mothership, Meister Media Worldwide, in lovely Willoughby, Ohio. My name is Beck Barnes, and I will be back with you in 2 weeks for the next episode of the Cotton Companion. For now, on behalf of my own Cotton Companion, Mr. Jim Steadman, we wish you and your farm all the best.
He works all day. God made it fun.
Phytogen thanks you for listening to this edition of the Cotton Companion. To learn how you can thrive with Phytogen, go to phytogen.com.